well, let's have another show of hands. Everyone who's wearing shoes today, please. Hands. Congratulations, you're cyborgs. You're using technology to augment your basic human capabilities there. Okay, we have been merging with our technology since we had technology. Baby slings, flint axes, we're cyborgs, have been for a very, very, very long time. In that respect, I sympathise with transhumanism as a movement that observes and is interested in these changes. However, I don't treat it as a doctrine. It's something I'm interested in, something I want to understand, something I want to examine. It's not something I want to belong to, necessarily. Now, I've done discussion panels before at science fiction conventions, which will tell you a lot more about me as well. But I've never had to do opening remarks like this, which is, I'm not afraid to augment my human memory with technology either. When I'm trying to do something one has never done before, one turns to one's heroes for inspiration. So I found myself thinking a couple of days ago, what would Bruce Sterling do? And he'd congratulate you all on doing a great job of whatever it is you do. I'm not going to do the voice all the way through, because I can't really. Then he'd draw a handful of ideas into a single cohesive lump, and then he'd tell you all that your business model has about two years to live, if you're lucky. Of course, transhumanists, you don't have a business model yet. Ray Kurzweil's got a business model. The cryonics people, they've got a business model. If you look at the contextual ads on anti-aging articles on the internet, some people have got business models there. Now, I'm not a businessman, I'm a writer, so what I'm interested in is stories, narratives. Transhumanism, Valentian narratives. Singularity as a narrative was probably popularised by Werner Vinge, as mentioned by Dr. Sandberg earlier. So it's, the drawing together of ideas into narratives is a very dominant factor in pretty much our world at large. It's a postmodern world. Everything is mediated. Everything is media. We are media. The media surrounds us, penetrates us. It's completely ubiquitous. Narrative is ubiquitous. You are the stories of yourselves. Okay? So you're probably thinking, why should we care about narratives, Paul? Well, it's not just me that worries about narratives. Even the Pentagon recently as good as admitted that wars are fought with stories as much as they are with bombs or guns, which is why they've been hiring people like the company H.B. Gary and other companies like that to create sock puppet software for repeating the messages and stories they prefer to hear, using the ones that we in America wins. There aren't enough of those these days. So, why should that matter? Transhumanism, isn't it more? Well, not yet. To take an example, take it away from transhumanism for a moment, I also identify as an anarchist. Now, if you've been watching the media recently, there's been a word that gets thrown around an awful lot, anarchist. So you're probably thinking now that my sort of big thing is throwing bricks through bank windows and fighting policemen. The thing is, when you make an ism, anarchism, transhumanism, whatever, an ideology, they become incredibly hard to police. Anyone can pin on that badge. Anyone can say, yeah, I'm an anarchist today. And they can go out and do whatever the hell they want. Anyone can say, yeah, I'm a transhumanist, I believe X, I believe Y. No one has core control over the ism. Okay? It's just out there, it's alive. You can do stuff with it. Well, another one that might be a bit closer to home for some of you here. Show of hands for atheists in the audience. Thought we'd have quite a few atheists. Okay, keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. Okay, now you can put your hand down if you're not happy with Richard Dawkins representing you on all philosophical questions from here on out. There we go. So, we live in a postmodern world. Postmodernism is an incredibly slippery concept in itself, but it's basically defined as a hostility towards meta-narratives. And meta-narratives are the stories we tell to make sense of the stories we tell. They're the grand narratives within which other stories fit. Now, isms are meta-narratives of a sort. Anarchism, transhumanism, atheism. It's a basic set, a space of story that one can move about in. There's a lot of potential for moving about in their different versions, different directions. Now, Kurzweil, to some degree of deliberateness on his own part, and one remove or several removes through people who follow him, who believe in his ideas, the chap Ptolemy, who made the film about him. They are co-opting, if you will, grafting the public narrative of transhumanism onto their own very, very specific strand thereof. So the public narrative of transhumanism is full of very, very diverse ideas. Kurzweil's flavour thereof is very, very focused. And as mentioned before, Ray Kurzweil has a business model. This is not to impugn, by the way, casting no aspersions on Kurzweil. Very intelligent man, very, very driven man. One thing I did take from the film, very, very driven man. Driven in ways that I didn't possibly expect. But again, you see, there's a narrative there. Ray's Kurzweil's story is the biblical undertones have been mentioned already. But it's a curious story. You could spend hours talking about it. But as transhumanists, when the transhumanist narrative is assumed, we've remarked already, people say transhumanism, people say singularity, people think Kurzweil straight away. Now, that's your narrative too. If you put your hand up to say you're a transhumanist, you're wearing the badge, the public will assume that you are cohering around the public figures that are associated with that term. You may or may not be cool with that. But remember that the meaning of the story changes with each reader, not just the person who's telling it. The person who reads the story changes the story as they read it. So, let's get all the hands up again, the transhumanists and singularitarians in the audience, please. Okay, so just for an example, keep them up. Now you can lower your hands if you earn less than 20,000 a year. It's alright, I'm not going to tell the tax. Okay, all of them up again. Now, all the men, put your hands down, please. Houston, we have a problem. Now, this is not me saying that transhumanism is inherently elitist. What I'm saying is it's very, very easy for someone to pin that on you. Okay? Now, who's going to do that? Who's going to do a nasty thing like that? Who cares enough? Well, at the moment, not many people. Okay? Transhumanism is still very much a fringe idea. It turns up in the main papers every now and again, but it's still the sort of very much the Kurzweilian sales points that turn up. You're going to be nice for us to live longer, be healthier, so on and so forth. That is not going to last. You see, transhumanism, whichever way you look at it, is a movement based on notions of transcendence, a state of human being above or beyond the standard edition. And that's a narrative we've heard before, maybe 60, 65 years ago now. You know, it's not a nice comparison to make, but there are comparisons to be made there. And the Daily Mail will make that comparison like licking blood up off the pavement. Interestingly as well, as transhumanism gets more popular, more publicly recognised as a term, as a music reviewer I've been seeing, especially in the last couple of years, not treated in any great depth, but transhumanist ideas and symbolism turning up in a huge variety of different musical forms. Obviously it's been kicking around in science fiction literature for a long time. But it's starting to turn up in more mainstream television now, not even specifically science fiction television. It's the idea of life extension, the idea of improving the human is becoming a more common currency. It's metastasizing, if you like, through the human body politic. Now, when this happens, again, it's the postmodern condition. Once you get a meta-narrative to that point, when it's big enough to fragment, everyone can kind of reach in, take out their own little bits from it. Take maybe that theme there, maybe that strand there, maybe that particular goal there. They get remixed, they get reused, they get rewritten. Remember, every story written is influenced by its writer, but every story read is influenced by the person reading it as well. This is inescapable in a media-saturated world such as we live in. Okay, we live in a mean swimming pool. Damn things roam wide while breeding, mutating. Isms cannot be controlled. As soon as you put a name on them, someone can pick it up, run with it, and do something completely different with it. And there are dozens of them already. It's with futurismic.com, where I write about this sort of stuff an awful lot of the time. I keep a close eye on transhumanist culture, and there are dozens of fragments of humanity plus narratives out there already. You've got your hardcore singularitarians and Kurzweilians. You've got your traditional transhumanists. You've now got transhuman separatists. You've got the grinders, who are wireless as sort of pop culture comic kids who want to graft stuff onto themselves. You've got the zero staters, who I believe we have a representative on in today. Chap left a comment.
Oh, that's me.
The name check, that's what happens. And these ideas are bubbling up everywhere. Okay, the cat is out of the bag, everything is up for grabs. As transhumanists, the thing you have to ask yourself is Ray Kurzweil going to tell your story, or are you going to tell your own story? Thank you very much.
So we're moving into marketing territory now, and who better than to wind up the introductions from the panel than Russell Buckley, who amongst other things has been global chairman of the Mobile Marketing Association. He's perhaps, don't want to denigrate the other speakers, he's perhaps the most marketing savvy of the speakers today. He's had a long background in various mobile advertising and other mobile companies, such as AdMob. And one other advantage he's got is he has recently been on the Singularity University executive program, discussing the implications for many of these ideas for new business. So, Russell, over to you. What's your view on what we've been hearing about?
Okay, well, I first came across Singularity about 7 or 8 years ago, I suppose. Cameron O'Reilly, who is a podcaster based in Australia, has a fascination with the Singularity. And he's interviewed people like Ray and Peter Diamandis and a lot of the other leading people, Robert Gray, etc. And I found the ideas so fascinating that I wanted to educate myself more on an ongoing basis about them. And if anybody is interested in this area, I certainly recommend going back and listening to those Cameron O'Reilly podcasts, because they're still very relevant today. And really there's kind of 3 areas which interest me. The first of all is about, if we're going to go into this sort of humanity 2.0 world, I think it's amazing that not many more people are talking about it. And when I was invited to give a TEDx talk last year, one of my themes was, this is what the singularity is. Now, let's go and talk about it. Let's go and talk to your friends and your relations and anybody else who's interested in the future of the world, because there's a tiny number of people, mainly in the Bay Area of San Francisco, who are actually inventing our whole future for us, and we're not talking about it. That's not necessarily unusual as far as technology is concerned. If you think, for instance, about CCTV in the UK, we didn't have a debate as a society whether we wanted it or not. We didn't have a debate in politics whether we wanted it or not. It just happened. And I think that unless we're very careful, there's a danger of these people just making it happen for us, and us not actually, we the people as it were, actually having any say of what this new world will look like. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think personally it's a great thing, but I think there's a lot of people who would be scared and do need to be talked about. The second area which interests me is the whole area of religion. I think there's sort of 3 areas here. There's one of which I find fascinating, is that we're potentially inventing our own God and our own heaven, where we can go and live forever. There's end of famine, end of wars, etc., etc. I think that whole idea is very interesting. Second thing was Peter Diamandis' point in the film, who's also a principal at the Singularity University, actually, of us as gods, where we are omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, and eternal. And I think so that's an interesting idea. And the other one is the kind of Ray as the Messiah or the prophet, kind of selling us on this brave new world that he wants us to believe in. It shares a lot of commonality with other religious themes, in the sense that it's telling us something we want to believe, that we can live forever, that one will be reunited with our ancestors possibly, and certainly our families, and live happily ever after. So I think that's the religious side of things. I want to talk a little bit, a few minutes about Singularity University. This is something I found very interesting. Singularity University was founded by Ray as one of the leading lights in it, and Peter Diamandis, who was also on the film. Peter also actually is a pill popper, and I had dinner with him where he was constantly had a bowl of pills in front of him, and every 10 minutes, every couple of minutes he'd be popping some more. And it's actually quite disconcerting when somebody's having about 100 pills in front of you as well as eating. So there are certainly downsides of that kind of lifestyle. The Singularity University is there to educate people, senior business figures, but also students, about the oncoming exponentially growing technologies, whether that be AI, the alternative sorts of energy, medtech, biotech, nanotech, etc. And it includes experiences like I saw a guy in a little lecture hall like this walk in an exoskeleton. He was actually paraplegic, so he shouldn't be able to walk at all. But he actually walked in sort of quite slowly and carefully, but he actually walked in because of the advances in medtech. One of the metaphors which they made, which I thought was very useful to try and understand exponentially growing technology, was the idea of being at the top until you suddenly see the pitch flooded, then it's halfway, and then you're going to be dead the next minute as it rises up. And I found that a very interesting metaphor. David also asked us to talk a few minutes about some of the ways of communicating about the technology and the advanced technology in a sort of user-friendly way. Obviously, Transcendent Man was useful, although I thought it was overall too indulgent in the sense that it tended to obsess on Ray's need to see his father again, rather than actually what he's like in the flesh. I haven't met him in the flesh, but I have been in a room where he's been in 3D into the conference room and had a conversation with him. Some of the writing I've really enjoyed in the last few months is The Demon and the sequel Freedom TM from Daniel Suarez, and that takes some of the technologies which we can see around us today and show how exponential growth is possible and huge changes is possible in the world today. I think other ones, Metamorphosis of My Prime Intellect, which is a great way to understand the growth of technologies, and of course Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom, I think, is another great novel. So calls to action. What should we do about it? Well, obviously people have talked about kind of health, which won't go on there, but yes, if you look after yourself and live for the next 40 years or so, hopefully you'll be able to live forever and all the challenges that will bring up. But the main thing I think we should do as members of this kind of audience is go out and talk about it, not just to each other, because we're really all preaching to converted, but the people who don't know about it, and people who should know about it, and the wider society about how we can influence it. And I think the other interesting thing to think about in this utopian world which we're heading for is what we're going to be doing all day. I don't know what the world's going to be like, and nobody does, but I think storytelling is probably going to be very important, and maybe Paul will be the most useful member of the whole of the panel that we've talked to today. Thank you very much.